Hello, my name is Reeve Surgener, and I am here with my friend and colleague Hayden Combs. And today we would like to discuss empowering the impoverished, a capabilities approach. The focus of this presentation will be what Hayden and I deem is the optimal way to both define and measure poverty, especially in today's United States of America.
The most important question to ask ourselves when defining poverty is who is living in poverty. After careful consideration, Reeves and I have decided an impoverished person is someone who lacks certain basic capabilities, preventing them from living a healthy and dignified life. To understand this definition of poverty further, we must ask ourselves, what is a capability? One pioneer in the human capability studies field is this guy, Amartya Sen. And Sen said that functionings represent parts of the state of a person, in particular, the various things that he or she manages to do or be in leading a life. Functionings are basically what Sen just said here. It's what someone does and who they are. And functionings are important because the capability of a person reflects the alternative combinations of functionings that person can achieve. Think of capabilities as a toolbox, and people can use this toolbox to reach their ideal set of functionings in life.
Now, many people have used capabilities in their poverty studies over the years. I'd like to introduce to you Martha Nussbaum, professor of law and ethics at the University of Chicago. In her work titled Creating Capabilities, the Human Development Approach, she outlines what she refers to as the 10 central capabilities. These capabilities include life, bodily health, bodily integrity, senses, imagination, and thought, emotions, practical reason, affiliation, other species, play, and finally, control over one's environment. Effectively, these capabilities are what Nussbaum thinks are crucial for one to live a healthy and dignified life. When Hayden and I analyzed this list, there were one or two that felt a little bit extraneous. The first being other species, and the second being play. While we see that these could feasibly be important in one's development, we also don't think that they are 100% necessary for one to live both a dignified and healthy life. While Nussbaum's 10 central capabilities are a good start, we believe that her list could benefit from two important additions. The first of these additions is access to quality healthcare, and the second addition is access to quality education through a high school level.
Now that we have effectively defined poverty, we must address how to measure it. Measurement of poverty is a complex issue that requires careful thought and consideration. And while this may be a daunting task, and sometimes seemingly impossible, we must measure poverty well so that we can address it effectively. In measuring poverty, it's important to keep sight of our definition of poverty and make sure that our measurement method includes those impoverished by definition. How are we currently doing this in this endeavor? Turns out, not so well. The U.S. defines and measures poverty using the Official Poverty Measure, or the OPM. The OPM was developed by Molly Orshansky in the mid-1960s, and basically it's a threshold. Either you're above the threshold and out of poverty, or you're below it and you're considered in poverty. We determine whether people are above or below the threshold based solely on their pre-tax income, and the threshold is set by a multiple of a price of food basket. Basically, 3 times this basic food basket set by the Department of Agriculture's Economy Food Plan. This food plan is a basic but nutritional food plan that can sometimes get monotonous.
Now, you might be wondering what the advantages and disadvantages of the official poverty measure are. Well, to begin, the advantages are it's very easy to measure, and also there is a very clear threshold. This easiness and the the clarity of the threshold have made the OPM stick since the mid 1960s. I'm sure you're all thinking that the advantages outweigh the disadvantages, right? Well, you're wrong. There are a plethora of disadvantages of the OPM, including, first and foremost, it is solely based on pre tax income. Therefore, it completely neglects in kind and near cash benefits, while also neglecting non discretionary spending. It does not account for geography, and it favors a family unit over cohabitation. It's also very outdated in that people tend to not spend quite a third of their income solely on food. As you can clearly see, the cons far outweigh the pros, which is really not something you want to see in something as important as a poverty measure. Our goal is to find a poverty measurement focused primarily and predominantly on a person's capabilities. We feel as though it is imperative that we diverge from the OPM and find a measurement that better suits our definition of poverty, one that more accurately accounts for individual well being, one that allows people the freedom to make decisions for themselves, and one that is much more nuanced in approach than the OPM. We know that this approach is idealistic and, in a way, shooting for the stars. However, it is better than settling for a standard just because it is easy to measure.
As it turns out, we aren't as far away from an accurate measure as it seems. The supplemental poverty measure is on the right track, and we don't need to start from scratch. The SPM is set by calculating the 33rd percentile of FCSU spending on food, clothing, shelter, and utilities. This spending value is then multiplied by 1.2. This extra 20% accounts for non discretionary expenses, such as a medical emergency. The SPM improves upon the OPM because it accounts for basic food, clothing, shelter, and utilities expenditures, as well as some non discretionary expenditures. It also accounts for in kind and near cash benefits, benefits that look and work like cash, but that fall through the cracks with OPM measurement. Basically, the SPM more accurately accounts for well being and capabilities of individuals. So, now that we've settled on the SPM as our starting point, what's next? Additional research into non discretionary expenses will help us maintain an accurate measure so that we avoid issues like the OPM where the threshold relies on an outdated expenditure model. This extra research will lead to greater accuracy so that the SPM can serve as a useful poverty measure as we define it.